There have been moans and consternations from what is a now, I guess the best way for me to describe this is a bizarre consortium of both right-wing, pro-war hawks and neocons to supposedly lefty-leaning newsreaders about President Trump's decision to pull troops out of Syria. It's almost as if that consortium that I just described, that strange bedfellow consortium, is saying that any war is a good war. Well, if that's the case, and what these pro-war newsmakers and news presenters want is war, is it possible that they may end up getting more than they actually bargained for in the form of much larger engagement, say with Iran? Joining me now to talk about this is former Pentagon official Michael Maloof, who's been looking into what the United States' next play is. Why does Iran come to this conversation suddenly?
Well, the question is going to be what happens to those troops that are being withdrawn from Syria and Afghanistan. They're going into Iraq. And if you'll recall President Trump's speech on New Year's Eve to the troops, he talked about how the troops are going to remain. They're going to be there to spring into Syria if necessary. But then he said, and Iran, to watch Iran. Why are you going to send special forces troops into Iran? Well, it's something being planned. The one thing I would watch out for is he going to be withdrawing any troops also from South Korea in this time frame? So you got to keep in mind
you're talking almost about a consolidation of troops. I mean, if you take a bunch out of Syria, you take a bunch out of Afghanistan, take a bunch out of, as you mentioned, part of South Korea. My God, you got a lot of troops.
This is speculation, but Iraq could become the new hub for U.S. Middle East policy.
Iraq,
for the positioning of these troops. And this is sort of a continuation from John Bolton's activities from 2003.
Well, hold on a minute. When you say Iraq, I'm a little confused. Do you mean Iraq as a launching point to possibly engage Iran?
Yes.
Because it's right next door.
That's correct.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned John Bolton. This is interesting that you would mention him because Trump has been saying all along, and he campaigned on the promise, and we know that not everything Donald Trump campaigns on actually comes to fruition. But let us just say that Donald Trump was true when he said, the first thing I want to do is get out of these unnecessary wars. It's about America first. Let's stop taking care of everybody else's business, et cetera, et cetera. But there seems to be a change in this administration. Who's driving this?
There's a Trump foreign policy and a Trump administration foreign policy, and the neocons have basically taken over Trump's foreign policy.
You're talking about your friend John Bolton?
He's not my friend, but yes.
You've spoken to John Bolton?
Yes.
What have you learned when you've spoken to John Bolton in the past?
Well, in 2003, I briefed him when he was the Undersecretary of State, ostensibly on terrorism. However, his vision for that region was we were going to take Baghdad first, then use that as a springboard to take Damascus, Tehran, Libya, and then Saudi Arabia. All the countries at that time which were regarded as enemies of Israel.
Bolton has always been known as a guy who no war is enough. I mean, if I hope I'm not overstating this, but he's definitely a hawk.
Well, he's never been in the military. He's never been in a war. I've been associated with at least 2 wars, and that's the last thing in the world we want.
But he seems to be, he was the biggest proponent of the war in Iraq, the invasion of Iraq, and you think good betting money would say he would probably be one of the biggest proponents of the war, of a war in Iran.
Yeah, he's been meeting very recently in Albania, for example, with MEK, which is the opposition, one of the many opposition groups of Iran. They want the administration to go on into Iran.
You know, while I have you here, because we're talking about this, let me just ask you, is John Bolton a really smart, measured guy or not?
He's smart, but he's calculating. And this whole thing is what the withdrawals and what have you. I think he's manipulating the president at this point, and I think that what we're seeing is something in which John Bolton is planning something bigger, and he's working in cahoots with Netanyahu.
This is great insight. Thank you, Michael. As usual, well done. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.